Word list 40. Resentment. Indignation, bitterness, displeasure. Not wanting to appear a sore loser, Bill tried to hide his resentment of Barry's success. Reserve. Self-control, formal but distant manner. Although some girls were attracted by Mark's air of reserve, Judy was put off by it, for she felt his aloofness indicated a lack of openness. Residue. Remainder, balance. In his will, he requested that after payment of debts, taxes, and funeral expenses, the residue be given to his wife. Resigned. Accepting one's fate, unresisting, patiently submissive. Resigned to his downtrodden existence, Bob Cratchit was too meek to protest Scrooge's bullying. Resilient. Elastic, having the power of springing back. Highly resilient, still makes excellent bed springs. Resolution. Determination, resolve. Nothing could shake his resolution that his children would get the best education that money could buy. Resolve. Determination, firmness of purpose. How dare you question my resolve to take up skydiving? Of course I haven't changed my mind. Resolve. Decide, settle, solve. Holmes resolved to travel to Bohemia to resolve the dispute between Irene Adler and the king. Resonant. Echoing, resounding, deep and full in sound. The deep, resonant voice of the actor James Earl Jones makes him particularly effective when he appears on stage. Respiration. Breathing, exhalation. The doctor found that the patient's years of smoking had adversely affected both his lung capacity and his rate of respiration. Respite. Interval of relief, time for rest, delay in punishment. After working non-stop on this project for 3 straight months, I need a respite. For David, the 2 weeks vacationing in New Zealand were a delightful respite from the pressures of his job. Resplendent. Dazzling, glorious, brilliant. While all the adults were commenting how glorious the emperor looked in his resplendent new clothes, one little boy was heard to say, "But he's naked." Responsiveness. State of reacting readily to appeals, orders, etc. The audience cheered and applauded, delighting the performers by its responsiveness. Restitution. Reparation, indemnification. He offered to make restitution for the window broken by his son. Restive. Restlessly impatient, obstinately resisting control. Waiting impatiently in line to see Santa Claus, even the best behaved children grow restive and start to fidget. Restraint. Moderation or self-control, controlling force, restriction. Control yourself. Young lady. Show some restraint. Resumption. Taking up again, recommencement. During summer break, Don had not realized how much he missed university life. At the resumption of classes, however, he felt marked excitement and pleasure. Resurge. Rise again, flow to and fro. It was startling to see the spirit of nationalism resurge as the Soviet Union disintegrated into a loose federation of ethnic and national groups. Retain. Keep, employ. Fighting to retain his seat in Congress, Senator Foghorn retained a new manager to head his re-election campaign. Retaliation. Repayment in kind, usually for bad treatment. Because everyone knew the Princeton band had stolen Brown's mascot, the whole Princeton student body expected some sort of retaliation from Brown. Retentive. Holding, having a good memory. The pupil did not need to spend much time studying, for he had a retentive mind and remembered all he read. Reticence. Reserve, uncommunicativeness, inclination to silence. Fearing his competitors might get advance word about his plans from talkative staff members, Hughes preferred reticence from his employees to loquacity. Retinue. Following, attendance. The Queen's retinue followed her down the aisle. Retiring. Modest, shy. Given Susan's retiring personality, no one expected her to take up public speaking. Surprisingly enough, she became a star of the school debate team. Retort. Quick, sharp reply. Even when it was advisable for her to keep her mouth shut, she was always ready with a quick retort. Retract. Withdraw, take back. When I saw how Fred and his fraternity brothers had trashed the frat house, I decided to retract my offer to let them use our summer cottage for the weekend. Retrench. Cut down, economize. In order to be able to afford to send their children to college, they would have to retrench. Retribution. Vengeance, compensation, punishment for offenses. The evangelist maintained that an angry deity would exact retribution from the sinners. Retrieve. Recover, find and bring in. The dog was intelligent and quickly learned to retrieve the game killed by the hunter. Retroactive. Of a law that dates back to a period before its enactment. Because the law was retroactive to the first of the year, we found she was eligible for the pension. Retrograde. Go backwards, degenerate. Instead of advancing, our civilization seems to have retrograded in ethics and culture. Retrospective. Looking back on the past, the Museum of Graphic Arts is holding a retrospective showing of the paintings of Michael Whelan over the past 2 decades. Revelry. Boisterous merrymaking. New Year's Eve is a night of revelry. Reverent. Respectful, worshipful. Though I bow my head in church and recite the prayers, sometimes I don't feel properly reverent. Reverie. Daydream, musing. He was awakened from his reverie by the teacher's question. Revert. Relapse, backslide, turn back to. Most of the time Andy seemed sensitive and mature, but occasionally he would revert to his smart alecky, macho, adolescent self. Revile. Attack with abusive language, vilify. Though most of his contemporaries reviled Captain Kidd as a notorious, bloody-handed pirate, some of his fellow merchant captains believed him innocent of his alleged crimes. Revoke. Cancel, retract. Repeat offenders who continue to drive under the influence of alcohol face having their driver's licenses permanently revoked. Revulsion. Sudden violent change of feeling, reaction. Many people in this country who admired dictatorships underwent a revulsion when they realized what Hitler and Mussolini were trying to do. Rhapsodize. To speak or write in an exaggeratedly enthusiastic manner. She greatly enjoyed her Hawaiian vacation and rhapsodized about it for weeks. Rhetoric. Art of effective communication, in sincere language. All writers, by necessity, must be skilled in rhetoric. Rhetorical. Pertaining to effective communication, insincere in language. To win his audience, the speaker used every rhetorical trick in the book. Ribald. Wanton, profane. He sang a ribald song that offended many of the more prudish listeners. Riddle. Pierce with holes, permeate or spread throughout. With his machine gun, Tracy riddled the car with bullets till it looked like a slice of Swiss cheese. During the proofreaders' strike, the newspaper was riddled with typos. Rider. Amendment or clause added to a legislative bill. Senator Foghorn said he would support Senator Filibuster's tax reform bill only if Filibuster agreed to add an anti-pollution rider to the bill. Rife. Abundant, current. In the face of the many rumors of scandal, which are rife at the moment, it is best to remain silent. Rift. Opening, break. The plane was lost in the stormy sky until the pilot saw the city through a rift in the clouds. Rig. Fix or manipulate. The ward boss was able to rig the election by bribing people to stuff the ballot boxes with ballots marked in his candidate's favor. Rigid. Stiff and unyielding, strict, hard and unbending. By living with a man to whom she was not married, George Eliot broke Victorian society's most rigid rule of respectable behavior. Rigor. Severity. Many settlers could not stand the rigors of the New England winters. Rigorous. Severe, harsh, demanding, exact. Disliked by his superiors, the officer candidate in an officer and a gentleman endured an extremely rigorous training program. Rile. Vex, irritate, muddy. Red had a hair-trigger temper, he was an easy man to rile. Riveting. Absorbing, engrossing. The reviewer described by its novel possession as a riveting tale, one so absorbing that he had finished it in a single night. Rivulet. Small stream. As the rains continued, the small trickle of water running down the hillside grew into a rivulet that threatened to wash away a portion of the slope. Robust. Vigorous, strong. After pumping iron and taking karate for 6 months, the little old lady was so robust that she could break a plank with her fist. Royal. To make liquids murky by stirring up sediment. Be careful when you pour, not to roil the wine. If you stir up the sediment you'll destroy the flavor. Roster. List. They print the roster of players in the season's program. Rostrum. Platform for speech making, pulpit. The crowd murmured angrily and indicated that they did not care to listen to the speakers who was approaching the rostrum. Rote. Repetition. He recited the passage by rote and gave no indication he understood what he was saying. Rotundity. Roundness, sonorousness of speech. Washington Irving emphasized the rotundity of the governor by describing his height and circumference. Rousing. Lively, stirring. And now, let's have a rousing welcome for TV's own Roseanne Barr, who'll lead us in a rousing rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner. Rout. Stampede, drive out. The reinforcements were able to rout the enemy. Rubble. Broken fragments. 10 years after World War II, some of the rubble left by enemy bombings could still be seen. Ruddy. Reddish, healthy looking. Santa Claus's ruddy cheeks nicely complement Rudolph the reindeer's bright red nose. Rudimentary. Not developed, elementary, prude. Although my grandmother's English vocabulary was limited to a few rudimentary phrases, she always could make herself understood. Rue. Regret, lament, mourn. Tina rued the night she met Tony and wondered how she ever fell for such a jerk. Ruffian. Bully, scoundrel. The ruffians threw stones at the police. Ruminate. Chew over and over, mentally, or, like cows, physically, mull over, ponder. Unable to digest quickly the baffling events of the day, Reuben ruminated about them till 4 in the morning. Rummage. Ransack, thoroughly search. When we rummaged through the trunks in the attic, we found many souvenirs of our childhood days. Ruse. Trick, stratagem. You will not be able to fool your friends with such an obvious ruse. Rustic. Pertaining to country people, uncouth. The backwoodsman looked out of place in his rustic attire. Ruthless. Pitiless, cruel. Captain Hook was a dangerous, ruthless villain who would stop at nothing to destroy Peter Pan. Saboteur. One who commits sabotage, destroyer of property. Members of the resistance acted as saboteurs, blowing up train lines to prevent supplies from reaching the Nazi army. Saccharine. Cloyingly sweet. She tried to ingratiate herself, speaking sweetly and smiling a saccharine smile. Sacrilegious. Desecrating, profane. His stealing of the altar cloth was a very sacrilegious act. Sacrosanct. Most sacred, inviolable. The brash insurance salesman invaded the sacrosanct privacy of the office of the president of the company.